Yes, you are in the right place. It's Bills by the Numbers, where we let the stats tell you where the Bills are at. We're presented by FanDuel. Make every moment more. It's the game that's been circled by every NFL fan, Bills versus Chiefs. National media believes the Bills are the Chiefs' equal, but do the numbers agree? We investigate which offense has changed more since last season. The answer might not be so obvious. And we quiz Steve in the numbers game on Allen versus Mahomes, 4 games head-to-head. Cue up the barbecue! Glad you can make it in with us here on Bills by the Numbers. Bills Wall of Famer Steve Tasker and Bills insider Chris Brown with you. And it's the week we anticipated would be a biggie. And with the two teams off to 4-1 starts, it is a battle for AFC supremacy. We've seen the national media, Steve, accept the Bills as AFC Super Bowl favorites, but the Chiefs appear to still be the Chiefs. So before we dive into the numbers as we do here, I ask, are the Bills the Chiefs equal? Because some will say until you beat them in the playoffs, you are not.
And it's a good point. I mean, it's valid. You've got to beat them in the playoffs in a game that matters. Now, certainly the Bills have had success in Arrowhead in the regular season. Actually, they beat them once in Arrowhead and once in Buffalo in the regular season. But they've lost twice to them in the playoffs in Kansas City. It's the 5th time these teams have met in the last 2 years. They've played this team more than they've played division opponents up to this point of this season. Now, at the end of this year, theoretically, unless they'll play again. If the Bills Chiefs play in the playoffs again, they will have played the Chiefs as often in the last 3 years as they have any division opponent, except maybe New England, which they met 3 times last year. Oh. So it's a rivalry that happens due to the fact that both these teams are elite. So you can say what you want at any given moment. Certainly the Bills can beat the Chiefs, and the reverse is true as well. I think the Chiefs see the Bills as that team, and that goes a long way for me. I don't think the Chiefs look around the league and say, "Yeah, maybe the Baltimore Ravens or maybe the Miami Dolphins." Yeah, there's no other team that they're looking at so frequently and with such circling that game on the calendar. Chiefs don't do that for maybe any other team like they do the Bills. And that tells me a lot.
Yeah, this is the 5th meeting in the last 3 years, counting playoffs. To me, Steve, this is a slay the dragon type of scenario. And even if they beat them here in week 6, I still don't know if it's the definitive proof, because they beat them last year in the regular season in Kansas City and then lost to them in the playoffs in a game that we all care not to remember. The bottom line for me is the Bills have to prove it on the field that they are better. Doing it in the regular season, I don't think convinces anyone. It has to be done in the playoffs against a team that was in the last 4 AFC title games and has won a Super Bowl. The Bengals beat them last year. They're the defending AFC champs, but no one sees them as an equal. The Bills have been knocking on the door longer, but the Bills have to slay that dragon in the postseason to be their true equal, as I see it. Let's dive into the numbers a bit. In the McDermott era, the Bills are 2-3 against the Chiefs, counting playoffs. Josh Allen is 1-3 against the Chiefs, and they're obviously 0-2 against Kansas City in the postseason. So at the center of this matchup, obviously, is Allen and Mahomes. Allen has averaged 327 passing yards per game in these matchups. Mahomes, 342. 11 touchdowns, 2 picks for Allen, 10 touchdowns, 2 picks for Mahomes. Passer ratings, pretty comparable. Their play is about as even as it gets, and it's reflected in the offensive production so far this season. The two offenses sit 1st and 2nd in points scored, 1st and 2nd in third down conversions, 1st and 4th in passing yards. Steve, which offense, though, in your mind, has changed more since last year's playoff game?
It's an interesting question because without Tyreek Hill, I think the Chiefs' offense is viewed differently by defenses. And I think with a different play caller in Ken Dorsey, Buffalo's offense has morphed a little bit. Mm-hmm. With the exception of the last week against Pittsburgh when they hit the big plays. Up until that point, it was kind of the saying we have, plinkety, plink, plink, boom down the field. The Bills were matriculating down the field, much more efficient, staying on the field longer play drive, more plays in each drive.
As we discussed last week.
So I think it would probably be Buffalo's offense that has changed more when you look at it with the naked eye, because the Chiefs have, certainly Tyreek is a unique player, but the Chiefs still have some guys out there and weapons on the outside. Travis Kelce is still the guy that makes it go, and of course, both quarterbacks are going to keep things humming along no matter who's out there. So I would say probably to the naked eye, well, I think I talked myself into the Chiefs because
round and round we go.
You know why? Because when you were watching the Chiefs offense, you looked for Tyreek. Even casual fans looked for where he lined up, and he's not there anymore. And I think that's the most noticeable difference, despite what the numbers might say.
Yeah, I mean, both teams have subtractions and new additions to their respective offensive schemes, but no Tyreek for the Chiefs, I think, changes things more dramatically for them than any change the Bills underwent. The Bills' defense can now focus their attention more exclusively on Travis Kelce, who Patrick Mahomes goes to on third down, as evidenced by Kelce's league-leading 12 third-down receptions through 5 games. He's responsible for an AFC-leading 27 first downs, and though more of the burden now falls on Kelce, Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Juju Smith-Schuster are settling into their roles, and they still have Mecole Hardman. The Kansas City offense has some different parts, but I think their effectiveness is largely the same. The same could be said for the Bills' offense, though. They no longer have Cole Beasley, one of their top 2 receivers in terms of production over the past 3 years. Players are similarly settling into their roles for Buffalo. Davis is the number 2. We saw Khalil Shakir get kind of blended in the past week. Isaiah McKenzie out of the lineup, but still trying to find his footing in the slot. And most importantly, as you mentioned, Ken Dorsey as offensive coordinator. The systems for both teams are largely the same. Whose offense is more changed based on the personnel changes? It's probably Kansas City because of the Tyreek subtraction. For the better, I'm not so sure. Which brings us to what figures to be the key in this pivotal Week 6 matchup. All of the stats say that the Bills have the better defense. The 2 areas where the Chiefs are close to Buffalo defensively is run defense, where they're ranked 2nd and 3rd, and in sack percentage, where they rank 7th and 9th. Buffalo, the higher-ranked team in both categories. But Kansas City cannot keep teams out of the end zone once they crack the Chiefs' 20-yard line. 31st in red zone defense, Steve, allowing touchdowns more than 81% of the time. Buffalo's defense giving up TDs in the red zone at a clip of 50%. They rank 9th in the league. Kansas City's defense also has not been able to force turnovers, just 4 in 5 games, including just 1 INT. Bills' defense has forced 11 turnovers, 8 of which are interceptions. Both of those are tied for the league lead, and that's with a constant churn of the lineup on the defensive side of the ball. With all the attention on the offensive unit, Steve, do you think it comes down to which defense plays a better game?
Well, I mean, it's always 2 sides of the same coin. So, yeah, if Kansas City struggles offensively, Bills' defense deserves a lot of credit because they don't usually struggle. I think the Bills' defense in these games, it's my opinion, particularly with these 2 teams, the way they're constructed, I think it's whichever defense can come up with a play when it means the most. You need a sack at the right time.
I got to have it played.
You got to have it because you never know how this game's going to go. It could, a la the Chiefs Monday night game where, they're down big to the Raiders before they kind of come climbing back into it. You don't need all those plays in the first quarter. You need to keep it close at the end so you have a chance. Or when you've got a small lead and they're coming down there, you need one play defensively to put it away. Which means you don't really, this isn't going to be about holding them to under 50 yards rushing or doing all. It's going to come down to a playmaker making a play in a moment where the game is on the line. The Chiefs' offense has been able to do that time and time again, and so has the Bills' offense. And point in question, you can pick whichever offense you want, the winner or the loser from the 13-second game. Both those offenses made the plays. There wasn't a defensive play in that game that you remember. That's what this game is going to be like as well.
I believe the number one reason the Bills signed Von Miller was to beat the Chiefs. It stood out as the one thing that kept them from closing out last year's playoff game against Kansas City. The lack of a closer for their pass rush. Adding those defensive tackles that they did in free agency helps, don't get me wrong. But for this specific matchup, Miller is the critical piece. Buffalo's defense must stand up as the number one unit in points allowed this week and just hold the Chiefs to one fewer touchdown than they usually get, and the Bills should win the game. Will that happen? The odds makers think it's possible for the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career. He is a home underdog. It's a small number, but he is a home underdog. Good conversation there. All right, next up is the numbers game. And in what has become known as Bills Chiefs Week, what better way to celebrate what we expect to be a supremely entertaining game than with an Allen or Mahomes numbers game? I am going to give Steve a series of statistical categories, and Steve is going to have to guess whether Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen has the superior numbers in those categories using only the 4 head-to-head matchups between these two quarterbacks, regular season and playoffs. Steve, are you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
Here we go.
Yes.
Allen and Mahomes head-to-head. Who has the edge? Offensive plays of 10-plus yards. Who has more, Allen or Mahomes?
Mahomes.
It's Allen.
Ow!
49-46.
Way to get off to a fast
It's close.
start. 40, what is it?
49 for Allen, 46 for Mahomes.
In 4 games, these guys? No wonder we can't wait. To watch this game.
Offensive plays of 20-plus yards. Who has more?
What was the
here?
last one?
10-plus.
Oh.
Who has offensive plays of 20-plus yards? Who
I'll
has
say
more?
Mahomes.
It's the trick question. It's dead even. 15-15. How about that? All right, we go one more. Offensive plays of 50-plus yards in the 4 matchups. Allen or Mahomes, who has more of those?
There was like 1 apiece in the last game. Two. Allen.
Allen, 3-2.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're one for 2 here, because I'm not going to count that second one.
It was a tie.
It was a trick question.
I got it right. Sort of.
Here you go. Here's a layup. Runs of 10-plus yards or more.
Josh.
Yeah, Josh, 12-3. Total touchdowns, Steve, in the 4 matchups. Which player has more?
I'll say Josh.
Josh by a whisker,
Yeah.
12-11.
Yeah. Because I was thinking Mahomes had him by 2 touchdowns in the first meeting in the playoffs. And then Josh had him by 2 touchdowns in the regular season of last year.
Yeah.
And then they were dead even last year, just about.
We're going to go next-gen stats here, Steve.
Oh, no.
Top speed in miles per hour running.
Oh, that's got to be Josh.
It is Mahomes.
Really?
He hit a top speed of 19.96 miles per hour in one of the meetings. The fastest Josh has run in a Bills-Chiefs matchup, 19.64 miles per hour. He
They're both running like they're
just nipped him at the wire.
like they got caught stealing chickens.
That is such a Western Kansas line. I don't know what else could be.
Perfectly acceptable.
Completion percentage in the Bills-Chiefs matchup. Who's got the better numbers there?
I'll say Mahomes.
Correct. 71.6% completion percentage. I think that's just an indication.
What's my score?
You have missed, let me see here. You missed the first one.
They're not even keeping, nobody
I am
cares.
keeping score. You missed the
It's as
first
if
one, and
The second one was a push.
second one was a push. You got the second one, or the third one, sorry, 50-plus yards. You got runs of 10-plus yards or more. And you just missed. You missed on the miles per hour. That was the only one you've got wrong. So you are 4 for 6, or 5 for 6.
Okay.
So you're doing all right.
I'm doing all right. What are you talking about? All right. I'm kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah, you are. Passer rating. Who's got a better passer rating in the 4 matchups?
Ooh. I'll say Mahomes.
Mahomes does have the better passer rating, 108.1 to 105.1.
Golly, you're killing it.
You are crushing it, Steve. Passing yards. Who's got more there?
Mahomes.
Mahomes, 1,200 to 1,053 for Josh. Yards per attempt. Who's got a fatter number there?
I'm going to say Josh.
Yeah, it's Josh because he's got fewer yards. So
Right.
the yards per attempt should be a little bit higher. 7.63 to 7.41. It is amazing how close these two cats are in these matchups. Sacked. Who got sacked more?
I don't remember anybody getting sacked. Mahomes.
Another trick question. It's even, 6-6. Long completion. Who's got the longest completion in the 4 meetings between the two teams?
I don't know. Josh hit Gabe Davis for some long ones. And he get Dawson Knox down the sideline. And Mahomes. He dinks it to Hill. He takes off.
This is a tough one.
I'll say Josh.
It is Josh. 75 yards. Mahomes, 71. I mean, they are like nip and tuck in every single thing.
Killing it, man. Golly.
Okay, last one.
All right.
Miles per hour on the fastball. Who threw the fastest pass in miles per hour? Allen Mahomes.
I'll say Josh.
It is Josh, not by much. 34.74 miles per hour was the fastest pass he has thrown in the 4 matchups. Mahomes, 33.81 miles per hour. Let's not forget that his dad and his uncle were both Major League Baseball pitchers.
Oh, yeah. Well, you've seen it.
They can both throw heaters. All right,
That's
Steve,
awesome.
killer job in the numbers game.
I did
You
good.
got all but one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 out of 11. A record for Steve in the numbers game. Of course, he had a 50-50 shot on each and every question. So we tried to be friendly with him there.
I outdid the statistical probabilities. Let's just put it that way.
Yes, a very solid effort by Steve in the numbers game. We shift now for a more in-depth look at this revamped Chiefs offense and what they may have lost on the defensive side of the ball. For that, we turn to our former Chiefs wide receiver and current Chiefs analyst, Danan Hughes, for more. All right, Danan, let's start here. Number 1 and 2 scoring offenses in football. It is crazy in these 4 matchups, both regular season and playoffs, between Allen and Mahomes, how similar their numbers are. Is there any reason for you to believe that Allen has maybe even raised his game a tick higher from what you've seen this season?
Oh, there absolutely is. I mean, you look at his game, and I think it's the difference in weapons. If I was to be honest right now, outside of Travis Kelce, our offensive weapons aren't necessarily at the level as far as strength as you guys. From a wide receiver standpoint, you guys are phenomenal. You come from every different direction. Heck, you got a rookie from Boise that's lighting it up as well. So Josh Allen has, those big guys up front. He's a big guy. He's part of the run game. So, yeah, we respect that offense, no doubt. We know we're in for a dogfight in this game. But at the same time, we feel like our defense is faster than last year. We're making more plays. We're creating a little bit more noise in the backfield, and hopefully we can disrupt things. I don't think anybody's thinking that this game is going to be a blowout on either side. So it's going to come down to 1 or 2 possessions, and hopefully we can make some noise again to get the W. I think everybody thought coming into this game that these teams would be undefeated, and with the 1 loss, I think there's a lot of incentive to get this win because it could have those playoff implications.
This game defensively has always been about a guy making a play. The Bills bring in Von Miller for that, and it seems as though you're right. It comes down to a possession at the end of the game where either team could make a play to win it. And do you anticipate this game being the same? And if so, which defender for the Chiefs and which defender for the Bills do you anticipate being that guy?
So, yeah, I think the acquisition of Von Miller is kind of the Bills' attempt to win that final possession. Not saying that he won't make noise during the game, because he will. But having guys like Von Miller, Aaron Donald, you can look across the board at defensive guys that make impacts at crucial times in the game. So I would say, to answer your question, it would be Von Miller on you guys' side and probably Chris Jones on our side. If you watched the game last week, he got called for a bogus roughing the passing penalty where he actually stripped the ball from the quarterback, Derek Carr, while landing on him and still bracing him. And yet that would have been a pivotal point in the game. Wasn't the end of the game, but it would have been pivotal. At the same time, Von Miller, we know his resume. He has been outstanding. He has a body lean, a rush attack like a guy I played with and you played against, Steve, and Derek Thomas. There's a lot of similarities in their games, and they made a living, and he made a living wreaking havoc at latter part of games in crucial situations, backed up against the goal line, whenever those big plays needed to be made. So yeah, we're gonna have to factor in for Von Miller. As soon as we break the huddle, we're gonna have to know where number 40 is because he can be a game breaker.
All right, so Danan, looking at the Chiefs' offense, obviously no Tyreek Hill anymore, traded away to Miami. They try to restock the cupboard with Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster. Where do those guys stand in the offensive blend? Have they officially settled in and this offense is like, let's just go now? Or are they still kind of settling into what their roles are within the scope of the passing game?
Actually, I want to say it's a mixture, and it's a weird way to answer that question, but let me explain it, because I feel like last game against the Raiders on Monday Night Football, we saw more than a glimpse of what this offense can be. I mean, Travis Kelce had 4 touchdowns, but he only had 25 yards receiving. The other targets, Juju Smith-Schuster, I think he settled into that intermediate threat where he's going to catch the tough balls across the middle, the shallow crosses, the deep crosses, the contested balls across the middle. He's going to use his body to be able to make those plays. And we've seen over the last couple of weeks stretching the field plays by Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So I feel like they're getting there. We've seen more than just a glimpse of it over the last few weeks, but there's so much more. And that's what I want to emphasize, is that there's so much more in the gas tank with our offense in regards to those guys. We went and got those guys because they are bigger, physical receivers, contrary to what we had last year. You consider in the game against the Buffalo Bills, and pretty much every game last year, we had receivers on the field that were sub 6 foot between McCole Hardman and Tyreek Hill. And we were still able to do damage like we were able to accomplish on offense, in part because of Patrick Mahomes. Now we got 6'4", 6'2", bigger receivers to complement a big tight end in Travis Kelce. That's the way this offense is trying to move towards, mismatches on the outside because of the bigger bodies. We just haven't seen it fully materialize yet.
This last one from me, Danan. What has Andy Reid and what has Patrick Mahomes said about maybe what they're trying to do differently this year, or what they've been forced to do differently, or what they want to do differently this year than in years past with this new cast of characters? What has it changed for those two from their own words?
From their own words, it's all about spreading the wealth. That's literally what they said. If you go back to the preseason, right before Game 1, Patrick Mahomes emphasized that this team is about spreading the wealth. If you look back at our first game against the Cardinals, I believe he had 9 different targeted receivers, completed to 8 of them. That's kind of been the MO throughout this season, is that we're going to spread the ball. We got Noah Gray as a backup tight end. He's going to get some looks. We got Jody Fortson, another backup tight end. Obviously, Travis Kelce, he's going to get 7 to 10 targets per game. And then the host of wide receivers, Sky Moore, being a rookie, he gets a couple of targets in the last game. The running backs out of the backfield, we got 3 running backs, one of them a rookie, and Isaiah Pacheco, who looked really good 2 weeks ago. And so they're spreading the wealth, and that's been the message pretty much since the offseason acquisition of MVS and Juju Smith-Schuster, along with the drafted picks on offense. So it looks different. We don't have Tyreek Hill. You don't have a guy that's going to get 10 looks per game in Tyreek, but you're going to have a bevy of wealth being spread amongst the rest of them, which I think these guys recognize makes them a little bit less predictable, which has worked for us now so far.
And then last thing, Danan, what about the Chiefs' defense. I mean, I realize that they're doing some things right. I mean, third in the league in stopping the run, but keeping teams off the board seems to be a little bit of an issue there, particularly in the red zone, where they're giving up touchdowns at a rate of 81% once the opponent cracks their 20-yard line. Has anything been addressed on that front by the defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I think that they recognize that that's a weakness. Obviously, you can't give up touchdowns in the red zone to the tune of over 81%. They've been really good against the run, third in the league in rushing yards. So there's a compliment to this on this defense that there's still room to move. And Steve Spagnuolo has been known for very aggressive defenses, but he's also been known for it taking a few weeks for the team to come together defensively. We're without our number one pick, Trent McDuffie, who was looking to be a really good corner, maybe not locked down yet, but pretty shut down corner. We got rookies in the back end that are playing at corner as well as safety. So it's new look. They're still kind of finding their groove. Frank Clark hasn't really been healthy completely on the field. So they're still a work in progress. We have not arrived to playoff caliber football on the defensive side, but I think we're heading that way.
Danan, thanks very much for the time as always. All right, we'll catch up with you down the line, I surmise. Something tells me we'll be talking to you again this year.
Thanks,
No
Danan.
problem, man. Anytime, guys.
Hey, want to win $1 million? Well, you can with FanDuel's free pick'em style game high-low. Pick teams for 4 different stat categories that you think will score the highest or lowest for the week. The more you get right, the more you can win. Get them all correct, and you could take home $1 million. Just go to FanDuel.com/high-low to play, and that's spelled H-I-L-O. Steve and I make these picks each week. Steve, I'm up first this week with the high and low for points. And as much as I hate to do it, I'm taking Tom Brady and the Bucs offense. They're playing the same Steelers team that had no answers for the Bills' passing game last week. The Bucs are a healthier group at the receiver position. The Steelers have no pass rush without T.J. Watt, so I've got the Bucs high for points. Low for points, I'm taking the Falcons. While they have put up points at times this season, I just don't see it happening against the number 1 rated 49ers defense. They have more sacks than any other team in football, number 1 run defense, number 3 pass defense, tied for the Bills for tops in points allowed. The Falcons and Marcus Mariota are going to have a tough day. Right. Steve, high and low for passing
yards. I don't care if it's a homer pick. This is going to be a shootout in Kansas City. I'm going to take the Bills for high in passing yards because the Chiefs, they've lost a couple of corners from last year's team. Their pass rush doesn't look as good. Josh is going to be able to put a big passing day up. And let's think about this. This is not a game where you let your foot off the gas with Mahomes over there.
Keep on trucking.
You got to keep on trucking. So they're going to be slinging it for 4 quarters fully, even with a big lead late. Low for passing yards, I'm going to take Carolina. Backup P.J. Walker, supposed to start for the Panthers with Baker Mayfield hurt. And the Rams' defense, while it's only middle of the road, they've got elite talents, as we know. So I don't see P.J. Walker going out there and lighting it up at all. So Carolina for low passing yards.
I like that pick. High for rushing yards, I've got the Browns. They have been mashing in the run game, number 1 in the league, and they're facing a Patriots defense that ranks 22nd against the run. I see a productive day for Chubb and Hunt. Cleveland high for rushing yards. Low for rushing yards, I'm taking the Steelers. Their offensive line is no match for Tampa's defensive line. I don't see a lot of space for Najee Harris, so Pittsburgh low for rushing yards.
All right, for me, high in sacks. I'm going to go with the Vikings, your Minnesota Vikings. They've got a pretty good pass rush, just sneaky good, and we don't know, who's going to play quarterback for the Dolphins, but the Vikings are 4-1, and they're a bad matchup for Miami, so I'm going to take Minnesota high for sacks. For low for sacks, I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks. Their pass rush hasn't materialized yet. They're facing one of the most elusive quarterbacks in football in Kyler Murray. He doesn't take a lot of sacks. He's too fast for them. They don't have the horses to run him down with any consistency. So give me the Seahawks for low in sacks.
Yes, and we apologize. Seahawks are playing the Cardinals. That was my bad in giving that to Tom. So, Tom, good for a quick change there on that. Thanks for correcting that for us. That was my bad on that one. And our closing figure this week with the top 2 targets in the Bills and Chiefs passing games, Stephon Diggs and Travis Kelce, Steve. Their rankings right now are just as close of those of Allen and Mahomes. So far this season, Diggs and Kelce rank 1st and 3rd in receptions, second and eighth in receiving yards with Diggs in front there, and third and fifth in the AFC in first downs with Kelsey ahead in that category. I'm telling you, man, whichever defense has the better answers for those guys might win them the game. That'll do it for this edition. Make sure you subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use so you know when our next episode is out. And remember, when you need to know about the Bills, you need to check Bills by the numbers. For Steve Tasker, I'm Chris Brown. We'll catch you next week, Bills Mafia.